Hi, it's Nia here from the Bead Hold. I've been down to my local op shop and I've picked up a necklace that is not quite how we would have it anymore, but there's some really lovely beads in there. The beauty of buying from secondhand or op shops is that there's a wealth of beautiful resource that's just sitting, often very inexpensively. When you first look at it, you might just think, ugh, that's not what I would want or how I would wear something. But look past that. Look to the beads themselves, because all you need is a pair of scissors, some new thread or wire, some extra beads to put in it, and those beautiful beads can come back, be worn, be beautiful, and you have something really unique and different that no one else has, because they didn't go to your op shop and buy that old necklace or bracelet and reclaim those beads. Alright, here we are. I have the necklace, and the very first thing we will do is chop it up. We've got bone, and this is carved bone. It's quite nice. This is an acrylic, carved again. And these are also acrylic, maybe a Bakelite, but they are really cool. And they're a beautiful colour. So I've decided that I really want to pick up the yellows in what I'm doing. Alright, here we are. Now I've had a little play. I've laid out my beads on the design board, and I wanted to do a weave for these beautiful yellow beads. These Travertine glass check flowers are such a perfect match that I really want to use them. A weave is when you have two strands or two lots of beads in between two bigger ones. But whatever I did here, I couldn't make it work because of the flatness of these beads. So then I strung them individually with those little turquoise size 6 seed beads in between, and I really like this look. So what I'm going to do is go with a straight stringing strand for these gorgeous big yellow beads with my glass flowers in between. But I am going to do a weave for the bone beads. So here's a better look at what a weave is. So if we have a look here, I experimented a bit. So I started off by having this over 2 strands with a spacer either side and putting 2 tiger eye beads in between. Then I did a bone and a tiger eye in between. And I didn't like the look of that so much, it felt too chunky, and these spaces either side the bead were too chunky. So then what I did was I went and got some O beads, and I changed it so that we had 2 sets of weaves in between each big bead, and I think that is going to work well for us, especially because I only have 4 of these beads, so I'm going to have to do something different at the sides. So that's my little play prep strand. And what we will do now is go ahead and make these one at a time so you can see how to do it. Right, so I'm using Soft Flex, our medium, and I'm using this lovely antique brass colour because it matches in with these beads really well, and I'm going to use that for both the necklaces that we will make. I know that my neck size, I usually have necklaces around the 50 to 60 centimetre mark, but I also know that this first one is going to be a shorter necklace, so I'm just going to make sure that I have enough around my design board for one nice length, and chop that and have a second one. I'm going to start by putting both strands through the one bead, and I want a spacer either side, partly because it looks nice in a design technique way, and also because it makes the strands for the weave parts separate better. So I'm sliding a spacer down. I didn't do this side, but I can do that the next time. And I'm going to separate out my strands. I have a top strand and I have a bottom strand. I'm using the same bead on each strand, so I can just pop them straight down. But often what you do if you have a different bead is you alternate them. So one time you have say blue on top, red on below, and the next time you do red on top, blue on below. Now there we go, that's going to get on there. Then I'll pop down individually another one of each of these beads, and then over both strands again another spacer. So this is a weave because the strands are weaving together. Right, so here is the finished weave as far as I can go because I don't have any more large beads. But I do have these super gorgeous little stone birds that I found when I was looking through the shop earlier, and I think one of those either side would look really neat, and then I'll see what I'm going to do above them, or if I'll just leave them as is. There's no way this little bird would fit over 2 strands, but it will fit over 1. So what I can do is slide it down the 1 strand, and then I'll slide an O bead over 2 strands and snug it down right close to this little bird so that it will stay in place. And then what I have is my necklace, and I have my 2 little stone birds. So now I need to decide if I might want to put something above them. This is some bone that I got earlier, or if I just want to keep it plain. So let me have a little think about that. I'll have a little look and see what it looks like on one side. These beads will go down over 2. That's little plain bone rondelles with a little bit of engraving on them, and another spacer. And for me, I prefer this side, and I am going to finish it there. So what I'll do to finish it there is I'm going to take 1 crimp bead and I'm going to slide it all the way down. So our standard 1.5mm crimp beads will easily fit through 2 pieces of the medium wire. And I'm going to hold this last bead in my hand and make sure those wires are together, and I'm going to give that a firm crimp. I want it to be nice and flat so it's part of the design rather than being off at an angle, which not only will look funny but it will scratch my neck. So there's my little crimp bead. I'll do the same on the other side. Make sure everything's flat and squash firmly. Now if I wanted to, I could have this as an asymmetrical necklace. So I could have this bead in the middle and have these sitting asymmetrically on my neck, or I could have it nice and even. I am someone who likes asymmetry, so I am going to have my op shop necklace, which I'm now going to call my bird necklace, sitting asymmetrically. So I will have my clasp up here so that this will sit like this. When you're doing 2 strands, it's really important to make sure that your wires are not crossed. So I'm going to take my crimp bead and I am going to carefully slide it, keeping a close eye on my wires and holding on to them so that I know that they are not crossed. Now instead of having a lonely clasp at the back all by itself, I'm going to make a special bead set. So I've squashed this crimp and I am now going to cut off one of my wires. And then I will slide a little bead set down on here to be a little feature at the back and so that it looks pretty. So I'm sliding down a 6 seed bead, an O bead and another size 6 seed bead. That gives me a little embellishment at the back. Then I'll slide down another crimp, my clasp, go back through the crimp, through the beads, making sure everything is tight to the bottom crimp, and making sure that my clasp has a loop to move in so it's not stiff and awkward. And then I will squash that very firmly. And that's one side of my clasp done. To make sure my clasp is even on the other side, I'll lay this flat in a curve, run my fingers up, make sure that this is sitting how I want it to sit, and I will measure across. And I'm going to not let my thumbnail go. I'm sorry you have to see my plaster. Sliced my finger when I was cooking dinner last night, and squash that. And because I never let go, I know that that is the right size for how I want this to be. And I'll repeat what I did on the other side. Cut one wire, and there's my end, and I have a chain so that I can adjust the length as needed. Now I have strung up the rest of my beads since I decided on the pattern, and I've got my beautiful yellow bead from my Opshot necklace, a copper spacer bead, a size 6 turquoise travertine glass seed bead, and my check glass flowers as a pattern in between them all. Now to finish off, I'm going to simply have a line of these seed beads going around each side. I've just checked this for size and it's great. I'm going to put a clasp on, a parrot and a chain again so that I can adjust it for size depending on the neckline of the top or dress that I'm wearing. And here's the second necklace. Lastly, I'm going to use these cool carved red beads, the last large ones off the necklace, to make a bracelet, and I'm mixing them up with a colourful array of our lampwork beads, and I'm going to pop a green seed bead in between each of them to give it some balance and also to help lengthen the bracelet a bit so I don't have to use quite so many big beads. I'm going to use some good old stretchy cord just to make it nice and easy. I'll thread all my beads up. There they all are. Try it around my wrist and it meets really nicely. So now I am ready to make my knots, and I'm going to put them straight in between these two beads. I'm going to do this quite quickly. If you are a bit unsure about stretch, go and find our sparkle stretch video. That's a really good one that talks you through from start to finish making these bracelets. So I'm going to put a nice few knots on there because this is quite heavy, this bracelet, and these two large beads at the end will hide the knots reasonably well. Then I'll take my clear nail varnish and pop it on to seal the knot. You can also use a clear drying PVA glue. And once it is dry, I will trim these ends in. So there we have it. 3 really neat, complete creations from one Opshot necklace that I personally would never have worn. Every month we're going to have an Opshot rescue video, so make sure that you subscribe, get your notifications and follow along and see what we do. We'd love it if you have an Opshot rescue, if you post it to our Facebook page or pop a note in the comments. It's always so interesting to see what people do with their beads.